Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is the April 23rd ad hoc committee interview process. This is our first meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast on the Town of Barnstable Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, please do make your presence known. That's a no. All right, let's roll. Sam Wilson.
Mr. Chair, point of order, just to do roll call real quick.
I thought we didn't have to do roll call.
You do for ad hoc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for the
All right.
committee members, sorry.
No problem.
Counselors, Mendez,
Present.
Burdick,
Present.
Bloom,
Here.
Turkelson. She did inform us that she was not going to be here. And Vice Chair Clark. Here. You have full quorum, or not full quorum, you have quorum.
Okay, Sam. How you doing? Good. Okay, Sam, so I see you want to interview for the strategy for housing.
Yes, that is correct.
So why this committee?
So I grew up on the Cape. I consider myself to be one of the lucky people. I inherited a house from my family. So I won the lottery basically in housing, but many people in my generation have not. They don't have the ability, and we need to build more housing to make it happen, to re-stabilize this market. I work in the real estate market, but I'm doing this because I care about the long-term health of the Cape, and that without housing, you can't have people living here. You don't have people to fulfill jobs, and the entire economy will slowly kind of degrade and collapse. And we don't want to see that happen because I care about this place. I want my kids to have a chance to live here and their kids, down the road.
What do you see as the biggest challenge to housing inventory and housing development?
So I think in terms of inventory, just lack of supply. There's things that the town can control, there's things the towns can't. The town can't control monetary policy by the Fed. High interest rates are just seizing up the market. Owners with low interest rates or cash do not want to sell to go to the property as much as they'd like, the more space or the downsides, whatever it may be, because they can't afford to. So nothing the town can do about that. But it's interesting to keep land-wise, we're getting close to relatively built out in terms of just available land. So finding strategies to build density in the appropriate areas that have the infrastructure to support it, from sewer, water, to utilities, to road systems, so that people have a chance to buy. Part of that is also probably actually some short-term rental restrictions, not a ban, but some restrictions in place to do that. On the supply side of it, and then in terms of development, it's streamlining development as reasonable as possible, because every dollar that the developer has to spend in the entitlement process is money that they need to make back with a return, plus that time test the early dollars spent to go to market. So the higher their entitlement costs are, the more they're going to need to charge for the property to make the project successful to go forward with it. So finding a way to reasonably streamline that, everything I'm talking about is everything's gonna get stamped yes, but making it possible so that people can develop.
All right, Councilor Clark.
Thank you very much. And good to see you again, Sam. Have you watched or attended any of the housing committee meetings?
I have not had a chance to be honest.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you're have made any homework out of investing in what the housing situation, how the housing committee or our housing advocates have invested so far.
I'll be honest, I've not, I deal with it every day in my work as a realtor, but I'll be honest, I have not had time to go to watch all those committee meetings. But I know that you've got some organizations here that like HACK that are doing work to build housing as best as possible.
Sure. No, I know that there's been folks who have worked on this for some time, and it seems like we just needed a little more traction. And we know that in Barnstable, it's not the only town that has a problem.
And the Barnstable can't fix everybody in the Cape's problems. It's going to fix its problems, and it's going to take part of the region getting the solved, but it can't be the sole responsible party to build housing across the whole Cape.
And I know you from your work with the water board, and I appreciate your investment in the town for the time and energy that you spent doing that. So I can understand that your reference to infrastructure comes from
Yeah.
being in the trenches.
Yeah, and I want to bring that same energy and that same commitment to being on this committee as well. I don't want to go and do something kind of half-assed, to be honest, and I want to do it properly and fully committed.
And if you're not selected, do you intend to come to those meetings anyway?
If possible, yes.
Yeah.
Look at my schedule with work and stuff and other commitments, but yes.
Thank you.
So we have these committees are kind of on the big side, 5 counselors, the number of citizens. And will you be able to get along with people who might have different ideas than you as far as, housing in Hyannis especially?
Yeah, it's not, if I try to be reasonable, but listen, I don't want to, come in, I'm not a dictator, I can't be. I don't want to come in and demand things to go a certain way. And even, I'll take an example of short-term housing. Being in the industry, even if you're still pretty, just like, hey, the Arctic Cape Cod industry, short-term rental should just be absolutely by right everywhere. And I started to see other cases like what's happened in Palm Springs, and somebody was like, hey, maybe it's actually a better solution than what I originally thought. So I'm not like once I've set my stone, I'm going to go forward, and that's the only way I'll go.
That's great. What happened in Palm Springs?
So as I understand it, so in Palm Springs, they implemented a really interesting short-term rental policy where they basically looked by neighborhood in their community and said, okay, we're going to cap the percentage of units by neighborhood, not across the town, but by individual neighborhood. And then what they basically said is anyone who's existing and has a permit in place, they're grandfathered. But what's most interesting is if you were to sell the property, the permits are not tied to the real estate. They're tied to the owner. So if you sell, the person who's buying it, if you're over that cap, they don't automatically get to rent that house again. They would have to put it back. And if there's a wait list, go on the wait list. So what has happened is prices have started to fall there. In part of this, I think there's some other macroeconomic trends in that market as well. But basically, there's some developers who basically caught their shirt off because they were in the process of building a short-term rental property or renovating and suddenly can't do it anymore. So something like that, it keeps any one neighborhood from being overly impacted by these properties. And it also means that, if someone comes and buys, they can't necessarily automatically make it a short-term rental if there's a sufficient supply. But it also doesn't prohibit them from existing. It doesn't say, hey, we can't do this, we're not just doing this, because they're part of the Cape's history. My grandparents rented our family home in the summit part-time. And, it goes back to even the 1800s. There was, houses being rented and stuff. So.
Thank you. Interesting. You've done a lot of good research there.
It's just part of my job. I look at that, and I feel this is dovetailing, and I'm going to pull knowledge from that side and both sides in play.
If I can follow up.
Yeah.
Now, explain to me again that your perspective on Palm Springs is interesting.
Yeah.
So it was capped by neighborhood, and you said that once the cap is, the owner of a short-term rental didn't automatically, it didn't pass to the next owner?
Yeah, so when the law went into effect, anybody who had, was a short-term rental at that moment was grandfathered in because they can't take away something like that necessarily. But they chose not to. So, but if they sell the property and they're over that limit, the buyer does not automatically get to continue that short-term rental on. They have to go back and get a new permit. Which means if they are over the limit, they basically go into think like our mooring system here on the Cape, where if I sell you a boat and I have a mooring, I don't get to sell you the mooring as well. You have to then go back in, and if there's a wait list, you have to go on the wait list, or if it's a lottery system, you have to go into that.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome. Seth, anything?
I find it incredibly hard to hear what's going on in this room, so I don't know that I could add anything to this. I think I got the gist of it. Did you ask? I might have missed it, but did anybody ask about your work, your professional life?
Yeah, not really. I touched on it. Yeah, so I like any good Cape Cod, carry a number of different hats. My primary career is I'm a realtor with Sotheby's International Realty in Osterville. So I do primarily the listing side on properties from, $300,000 entry-level condos in Hyannis up to multi-million-dollar summer homes. But I do some work with the Cape Cod Maritime Museum on a fundraising side with them. I run a boat for family in the summer. I've had a number of different hats on the Cape through that time as well. So I just, I'm doing everything I can to survive here.
Yes, I know the feeling. And then you currently sit on the board of the Hyannis Water Authority, right? For the,
Yes, I'm chair.
however you phrase it, I forget the terminology exactly, but
Yes, I'm a chair, actually. We changed our name recently, so it's now the Barnstable Municipal Water Supply Board.
right. And do you have any other boards, committees, or commissions that you serve on in the town, or any nonprofit boards?
Nonprofit boards, yes. I'm the secretary of the Hyannis Port Civic Association. I sit on another board, but that's something in another state. So that's primarily where I am right now for board positions.
Okay, great. I probably could have got that from your resume, but I went through them all. There's so many to read.
Yes,
that
that's
It's
good.
easier to ask sometimes. All right, that's really all I had. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, great. Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I crack the window? Not at all. Thank you.
Mark McNeely.
Hey, Martin, people. Hi. How are you? How are you?
So Mr. McNeely is also running for the housing creation. So why housing creation?
It's really a personal issue with me. So as I put in my application, I have 4 children. 3 are adult children that are all housing insecure. So I have my oldest daughter is a paramedic at firefighter EMT in P-Town. I have another daughter that's a teacher in Barnstable school system. And my other daughter is a hairstylist in Hyannis. So 2 of my daughters share a small apartment in Yarmouth. And my other daughter lives with her in-laws in their house in Centerville. So I've seen the housing as it's gone I've been on it 40 years. So I've seen how the housing has gone. And I'm very concerned they all would like to stay on the Cape. I'd love to have them stay on the Cape. But the housing in its present situation, they're not able to find housing or housing that is secure, that they're, can count on it being there year after year.
And what do you feel is the biggest impediment to housing on the Cape?
Obviously it's supply, but it's not as simple as supply. There's a lot that goes into housing, into creating housing. For instance, I was just reading the article in the Times today on the housing project in Orleans. That's obviously the Cape Cod 5 redevelopment of their headquarters. Now they're creating 60-something units, and all the partnership that took place between the private and the public, and funding from multiple avenues to get that project off the ground. But the town, what I noted about that, the town jumped at the opportunity. So when that project when that building became on the market, real estate market, they jumped at it. And that's the kind of thing, an existing building, you're not creating a new site, you're not clearing land, you're not jeopardizing, the environment, you're using an existing site. So I really liked what they were doing there. I'd like to see more of that here in Barnstable. I think Barnstable has been doing a decent job. I think they're in the right direction, but I think we got to think a little more outside the box. I think we have to be creative in our housing and all types of housing, but especially that missing middle. I think that's really, really important.
Councilor Park?
I'll ask the same question I asked of Mr. Wilson. Have you attended any housing committee meetings?
I have not attended them. I've watched them on video.
And what did you get out of it?
So I think they have a lot that they're trying to tackle, and I appreciate their efforts of what they're trying to move forward in the town. Again, I think it's another piece of the puzzle that we need to move forward here in the town with addressing the housing issue and the housing crisis in reality.
Good for you, and I'm glad that you paid attention to that. And I recall you from your coming to meetings for the licensing and permitting subcommittee that comes 2 years ago. I think
Yes.
they were addressing short-term rentals.
Yes.
So how do you think the short-term rental situation contributes or affects the housing housing stock in Barnstable?
Well, I was actually fascinated by the last gentleman's comments. I think the Palm, was it Palm Springs or Palm, was fascinating. I think that model is interesting. So I currently still work for a short-term rental company, which I disclosed obviously on my application. But I think it's interesting. I think the impact is, I think there is some impact, but I think it's minimal. I think most of the rental housing in the town of Barnstable that is short-term rentals is people's second homes. They're not gonna turn around and do year-round rental to those properties. They use the property for part of the year themselves. So the vast majority of the owners I work with for short-term rentals, they use the house 4, 6, 8 weeks a year. Holidays, couple weeks in the summer. They are not gonna turn around, say if there wasn't short-term rentals allowed in the town of Barnstable, they are not gonna turn around and say, oh, I'm gonna make it a year-round rental now and have a year-round lease to have a family come in. I just don't see that happening. I think we have to make incentives to give them alternatives. The other, some of the other plans that are out there that you incentivize making year-round rentals. P-Town's looking into it. They're trying to come up with a plan to actually make a payment that people can use towards their down payment. Deed restrictions. Those guys, I think when we get too heavy-handed and tell someone they can't do something, I think it gives the wrong impression. I think we give people other options, and that's how you try to turn the housing so that it's more balanced. Any heavy-handed approach, whatever avenue you're taking, I'm not in favor of. I think it has to be done through incentives. There are models out there. I don't think we should try to reinvent the wheel. Let's use some of the things maybe Palm City's using. Maybe what Vail's using with the deed restrictions in Colorado. I think those kind of options are what we should be looking at.
And if you're not selected for this committee, what do you expect to attend meetings?
Yes, I would still participate either remotely or in person because, yeah, I'm very interested in the actual process and where it goes.
Thank you.
I know what you mean about your children having housing and insecurity. My son is moving up to Quincy right at this very moment because of he can't find a place for him and his new wife, you know, down here. And it's kind of sad, you know, to see our children move away.
Yeah, I agree. And all I'm looking for, like, I'm also not a believer that you have to work for it. So I don't want anyone to give them anything. I just
Sure.
want them to have options. And I have a fourth child that's at home. He's 20, but he's gonna be the fourth one. I'd be mentioning the fourth one if I was probably here in a few years, saying now I have 4 kids that are looking for housing. He's still hanging around. He has nowhere else to go right now, nor has the financial ability, but he'll be number 4 sooner or later.
Yeah. So how about your ability to work with people who have different ideas than you regarding housing? You know, for instance, a lot has been made about bumper stickers, you know, and you know, bumper stickers don't tell the whole thing of a person. Can you work with people who have different ideas?
I am desperately looking for the middle. The middle is gone. It's gone nationally, I think in a lot of ways, and I think it's gone locally at our own politics. I saw the last town council and associated committees get accused of being one-sided. I'm seeing the new council and the associated committees of being the opposite side of that. I'd love to see the middle. I have no problem meeting in the middle. Like I want to see creativity. I want to see ideas. I want us to see come to the middle, meet part way and get something done is what I'm looking to see.
Well, you know, I take exception at that because I think we are trying to get to the middle, the current council.
I'm not taking it personal, but I think there's some, I don't mean it to be personal if it came across that way. But
No,
I see the extremes. I see the extremes. I go to the council meetings. I went to the last council meetings and I saw the extremes. I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. I see that the extremes are there. And I think there needs to be more in the middle. Maybe that's the directions it's heading in. And I'd like to see more of that.
I don't see the big streams. I see everybody working together to try and do something for the town.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Awesome, Chair Wilson. Welcome.
Thank you. Your statement was that there's evidence that the town has made some good progress. So I guess I'm going to ask, which examples could you bring to us since you've watched the housing committee, which hasn't met in almost a year? You know, I know you attend meetings. I've seen you there. You've been with Com for a long time before you're with your rental business.
Yes.
So just wondering, what are some of the evidence, some examples of the evidence of us doing it well? That's my first part of my question.
So they've certainly had new housing projects that are in the works or in design that we're talking about. As far as well, you could debate that, because if you look at the number of affordable units, market rate units, or units that for the middle ground, it's probably not where we need to be. Certainly, there's housing projects behind BJ's, which certainly is not going to solve the market rate or the low income housing. There's been some smaller projects. There's the Cape Cod Bank and Trust on Main Street. That project potentially, again, that amount of percentage of lower income housing units is small in the overall project. And there's certainly been talk of a lot of different projects in the pipeline. The motel further down on East Main Street, Cascade, thank you. Couldn't think of it, is another project that supposedly is permit ready. I don't think they're looking for a new developer. I think it's for sale, the last I knew. Again, the percentages are fairly low. As in different, what I would say is different about that project than the project that I first brought up today was the Cape Cod Bank and Trust one in Orleans, where I think all of those units are either low, moderate, or middle income units. So there's nothing that's market rate. So that's the kind of project I think the town needs to go more towards. But there are housing projects that are making a difference. The Marston's Mills School is another piece of land that they're looking at when the infrastructure is in place to get additional units. So I think the percentage is the area where the town needs to work on.
And if we're not doing it well, is there a specific example where you could say, the town maybe didn't do such a great job on that, and that's contributing to the ongoing housing crisis?
I don't know if I'd say it contributes to the ongoing housing crisis. When I see, again, I guess I'll bring the project behind BJ's. The relatively small number of affordable units in comparison to market rate units. I wouldn't consider that an ideal number. I guess in some ways I look at something's better than nothing, but if we keep building like that, obviously we're going to be in the thousands of market rate and we're going to be at 100 of low income, which is not going to solve the problem. Because obviously with the seasonal needs for jobs for the J1 workers and stuff, and then the year-round workers that need housing, doing projects in that regard is not going to ultimately solve the problem.
And as far as, because you've obviously been following this for a while and probably longer than I have, so I appreciate that. Are there any areas, I know you mentioned Vail, but is there anything that you found in your research that you've been kind of holding back because you didn't think it was amenable to the town's philosophy? And now you think this is the time, I'm going to bring this thing forward because I know now we have this new ad hoc and it's welcome. So is there something in particular that you've been researching and learning about that you think is particularly like the bright spark that we need here?
I don't think it's new. I think
maybe not new,
yeah,
meaning new, maybe new to the people.
Yeah, and not, yeah, I don't think
like they haven't been studying it like
right. I don't think it's necessarily new to the group, but it all goes back to infrastructure. I think the town needs to be able to expand where housing goes, but we can't do that to the infrastructures in place. When we're talking our other villages, I know there's been a lot of talk about, certainly Hyannis has a lot of the affordable housing in compared to the rest of the town. I don't think there's any debate about that. I think that's longstanding. We need to get housing into the other villages. To me, that only can happen with infrastructure. And then, of course, the last few meetings, we've seen how much that infrastructure is costing. And the council, you as the council, has to figure out how to pay for that in a couple of years when the taxpayer money we have runs out, so to speak, and we have to look at other sources. So I want to see housing I do want to see it shared amongst the village. I think that Route 28 corridor, going out back to the mills through Centerville, through Oswego, it's on the bus line. That's where the affordable housing should be, easy to access for workers to get where they're going. Those kind of thought process, using existing sites, commercial buildings that are already there, trying not to create or use raw land especially raw, sensitive, environmentally sensitive land for housing, try to use what we have, but expand to other villages in the town, would be something I think should be a priority.
And if you were to envision, say, you know, we have, Hyannis has got the infrastructure and we had the infrastructure, say, in Osterville. Or we had the infrastructure, we brought it to Katuitt for some reason. What would you envision that would look like that's different now without that infrastructure? Because obviously there's a big debate going on about 4 stories in Hyannis. How do you envision that in the other villages that are more maybe, I'm sure someone's gonna construe what I say, maybe a little more quaint, like, I mean, Osterville's a lot smaller, you can kind of walk through it in a couple minutes versus Main Street here is a lot bigger and broader, so how do you see that looking in some of the other villages compared to what we're doing here in Hyannis?
Yeah, I think it should fit into the environment. You know, I don't think if you put a 4-story building, obviously, as you said, it's debated in Hyannis, so we could certainly talk about that. It certainly would be debated heavily in Osterville, Marston's Mills, or Katuitt. So I think having the housing fit into the environment is really important. But I think there are creative ways of doing that and getting the housing in place without it being offensive. I mean, I think there's a lot of smart people out there, designers out there, architects out there that can come up with a plan and design that will get the numbers that the town's looking for without being offensive to the neighborhood or the village. Is it an easy sell? No, never has been. It's never going to be. But I think it can be done. And I think there are ways of doing it.
And as far as if you were to say, I'm gonna be, you know, in charge of affordable housing, what percentage do you think would be a good percentage? If we didn't have to worry about certain things, because obviously we need to, but if you said, you know, in order to move this needle forward, I think a better number than 10% being the minimum that we require, where do you think that number should land?
I don't have a great answer for you there right now, because my first answer right now would be to get to 10% in the town. I mean, Hyannis has a number that's significantly higher than 10%. The rest of the villages are nowhere near 10%. So I think it's to getting the whole town to 10% to meet that state minimum. And then let's evaluate where we are then. How much higher it should be than that, if it should be, I can't answer that. I don't have enough, because again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're 6 something as a town, I think, 6 point something% as a town. So we have a long ways to go as a town to get to the 10% number.
I would agree. Thank you.
Councilor Burdick?
Hello, yes, I'm still here and paying attention, I promise.
No.
No, no, I think you covered it. I don't really think I have anything to add per se. So thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you.
Eric Swall. See you guys. Leave them back. Hey, Seth, how are you?
I'm good, Eric. How are you?
Pretty good. All right, Charlie's been taking my boilerplate questions about getting along and all that stuff. We've interviewed you before, so we don't have to ask that again. So why housing?
No, I'm not doing housing.
Oh, zoning, I'm sorry.
Well, the reason zoning, first of all, there's a lot of talent that has applied. So you guys are really lucky. You got some good people to choose from. So even those folks, I would say that my contribution would be probably to be the clerk of that committee. Because that committee is going to have to go through probably at least 300 lines of code, possibly more. And it's going to be, right? She's shaking her head. And it's going to be a chore. And I'm not sure that how much town staff is going to be available to support these committees. So it's going to be a self-service environment. And just to give you an example, so last night in Falmouth, we passed a resolution, it's not even an ordinance, a resolution, 3 pages long. It took 4 months of meetings to get 3 pages approved. And now you're gonna have to do 300 pages. And you're gonna touch on some pretty controversial issues, short-term housing, parking, 4 stories versus something else. So you're gonna have a lot of hot spots, and you're gonna have a lot of revisions. And you're gonna have to move pretty quickly, because you're gonna be done in the fall. So that's my opportunity.
All right. Councilor Clark.
Thank you very much. I recognize you from attending many meetings, so I appreciate your investment in what the town has been doing. When you say, you're referencing farmers, we passed, what do you mean by that?
Oh, I'm generally opposed to very aggressive state laws that take away local control. And the two areas where that's happening is in energy siting and housing. So there's a pretty high profile 40B going on in Falmouth right now on 40 acres of land. And so they asked me to come in and help them because of my involvement with Save Twin Brooks. So the Save Twin Brooks team went out there and sort of said, this is how we do things. And then I stuck around to handle some of their marketing and logistics. And as an outgrowth of that effort, stopping a 40B in the state of Massachusetts is an unbelievable experience, I can tell you that. And one of the hooks we have is environmental. So, I mean, there are protections for certain species in Massachusetts, but when you have an ordinary box turtle or an orchid in the woods, people are like, well, I kind of like to have the 500 units instead of the orchid, and so bumping up against that, we realized there's no fundamental right for nature in any of our zone. The right of nature to exist or persist, it's just not written anywhere. So we contacted Tommy Zine, the gentleman working with, contacted the United Nations Harmony with Nature Project, and they assigned resources. They gave us, the former town attorney for Santa Monica as legal counsel, and they brought on an activist, Callie Vanderman, who's leads the Mother Fact Project. She's a big turtle gal in the Caribbean, and they coached us through the drafting of a resolution. And yesterday, Falmouth for Earth Day became the first town on Cape Cod to recognize the rights of nature to persist. And it was really interesting process because Marcia Motry, the council, she guided us away from ordinances. She goes, try the resolution first, see if you can figure out what you're doing, and then do the heavy lifting. So to make a long story short, this committee on zoning has got some serious heavy lifting in front of it. It's just going to be a lot of drafting, a lot of document processing. There's going to have to be some analysis. I started working with my counselor, Bailey, on zoning issues. You saw some of the output from that. So we were able for the first time we actually did data analysis and IS, you can imagine, but we got, for the first time, we got a view of the complaint stream. So, which has been, some people think it's rising exponentially, but it's actually not. It peaked in 2000. These are zoning complaints. They're going into inspection services, and you have almost none. They'll check you about 6. IS gets a 100 to 250 a quarter, right? And thankfully it peaked in 2000. In June of 2022, it peaked. And it's trending down, and it might actually normalize. So the next step in that analysis that we're doing now is, okay, well, what is everyone complaining about? What's the reason for the complaint? So I just got off the phone this morning with the IT department, and we got permission to get the full data set for the first time ever. They're going, give the data to the third party to analyze, the third party being me. And we're gonna put together reports for the council to look at, you know, so you can say, okay, well, you know, short-term rentals are a problem, here is why. Or they're not a problem, you know, it's just an exaggeration, there are 5 vocal people complaining about it. We don't really know that one scenario is actually real, right? We just don't, so we're gonna look at the data, prepare it, give it to housing, and say, okay, you know, this is the problem in Hyannis, 6.5% of the housing stock, 6.5% of the housing stock in Hyannis is short-term rentals right now. It's half that in Centerville and Osterville where it's hot. Okay, so you can't displace 6.5% of the housing stock and not have an impact, right? It's just not possible. So clearly there's an impact in Hyannis. So what was interesting is, again, Sam brought the one cool piece of information today. What's interesting is, okay, can we limit to short-term rentals in Hyannis? You know, can we say, okay, you know, you want to rent a mansion in Osterville, no problem, knock yourself out. But the 3-bedroom, you know, 1-bath house in Hyannis, we need to have the workforce housing. You have to leave that alone. And again, we can talk about that once we know what we're talking about. So we got to do the analysis and say, okay, well, you know, how big is the problem? You know, where is the problem? And then you can get to the discussion about how you can fix it and what zoning you're gonna need in place, you know, to stop arguing, you know? Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I saw the data and very impressive, very helpful, so I have confidence from that.
Thank you.
And that, the civic association gave me that, was really highlight,
That was great, Cambridge.
you know, and yes, short-term rentals has impact, but when we were younger, we were short-term rentals, we used to just call them winter rentals. Same stuff. So they didn't pay taxes.
Well, the biggest,
Seasonal.
there is a
Yeah,
difference, but
seasonal.
the biggest difference is that it was 2 weeks, right? That was. cast in stone.
The thing is that, because I lived in short-term rental. I mean, I'm sorry, a winter rental, my first place was a winter.
Yeah, because you said.
Yeah,
slide in,
Yeah, sliding in, you know, in September.
Yeah.
You leave in April. And then they would rent, you know, rent the house either through the whole summer, a week here, a week there, a week here, a week there. Now it's become such a business that that's the impact part, but not that we've never done it before. And that's my,
Well, it's facilitated by software.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
well,
it's like, you know.
given the curse of technology.
Yeah, they took the friction out of the transaction and it became more prevalent.
Yeah.
Like, really typical. But again, is it really a problem? So
Yeah.
when we get the complaint data parsed down to the detail, then you'll know.
Yeah, and I would suggest everybody in town read that data, 'cause it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
It really is.
We'll get out there. You were just at the end of the list because you only had 6 complaints.
Because she runs it with an iron fist. though.
Part of the character of our community. But thank you, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, we're gonna get the next load probably Thursday, and then a couple of weeks later, we got approval from the town attorney, and so it's gonna happen. It's just probably 2 full weeks out. And again, it's in preparation for these committees. You know, we're trying to make sure that there's some meat on the bones when they get started, so that you know, it doesn't wander into a bickering match. You know, it's gonna have to be. Right.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, if you don't get selected for this committee, would you be attending anyways?
I'll probably curtail my effort a little bit, but I still want to I am going to make 3 presentations. One is on the zoning data. The second is I've been talking to a software company called Placeholder, and they're active in Telluride and Vail, and they have a program that was just adopted by Provincetown and previously by Nantucket. So they're on the case. And they should be here.
They meaning the software?
It's a service.
Oh, sure.
It's a software. as a
What
service.
is it?
It weans you off the short-term rental.
Oh,
It
okay.
actually looks at, it talks to you, the homeowner,
Mhm.
and says, we will pay you to transition off the short-term rentals to a year-round rental. If that works well for you, we'll pay you to expand your property. So, you know, people, there's always the talk like you can't rent down here because you can't get the tenants, right? I mean, that's, people told me when I first moved down, they said, don't rent, don't. You know, but, you know, you have to rent.
Yeah.
Right? So if we can wean people off like the sugar rush of short-term rentals and get them back into the year-round rental market and then convince them that, hey, you might want to take some cash out of this property. You want to, why don't you commit to this program, deed restrict your house and give people an opportunity to have long-term workforce housing without, you know, building 4 stories on Main Street.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know, if we can rebuild the neighborhoods that you grew up in, you know, we can do it with, you know, good software and smart engineering and good financing. If we can make all that work, we can buy back our neighborhoods, basically.
It's interesting, something to look at.
Yeah. So that's coming up. Betty's looked at it. And finally, beach committee. You hear all the controversy about beach raking last year. We need a beach committee. Yeah, I don't understand why we don't have it, frankly. Falmouth has one, Situate has one, Hull has one. You know, this whole fuss about, you know, raking the beaches and making way for the birds. You know, all that should have gone through a beach committee. And so I know people want to get rid of committees. The one committee we need is the beach committee. So, you know, we gathered some data on that. And so I have an idea of like what responsibilities the beach committee might have. And I think it would get a lot of work off the shoulders of the town manager, first of all, because he's like deciding on, you know, parking hours. And every beach has a different opinion, you know, and he's, you know, doing the raking and you know, it just goes on. And that's all a waste of the town manager's time, frankly. And so I think the community would like, you know, to arrange their own beach cleanups and different stuff. So I think that's a good opportunity. So those are the 3 proposals that we're making, regardless of how you decide.
Councilor Burdick?
Hello, I'm still here, yes, and paying attention, as I said before. That was a lot, Eric, as always. You've got a lot of things going on. And since we just did this recently, I don't think I have any questions to ask you specifically, but just say thanks, as always.
Great.
Coming down.
I appreciate your support, Seth, and you know, hopefully we'll make this happen.
All right, thanks a lot.
Steve Peckham. How you doing, Mr. Peckham? Jeff.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Meet you. Well, first off, I want to say I didn't come prepared with a monologue.
I know, that's fine.
If I did, it'd be, Larry David or Johnny Carson or David Letterman or something,
I'm
but,
sorry, I didn't get your name.
Steve Peckham.
Steve, nice to meet you.
I was gonna come up with my David, so I'm gonna let that go.
Well, you have me at Larry David, so. All right, so why zoning?
I have been involved in any committees or anything in the town for a good golly, probably 25 years now. Last time I was on the Economic and Community Development Committee, going way back, and as an offshoot, we did the lights around the town green, get that going, and I'm concerned about balancing our infrastructure, water pollution, water, with the capacity of them and I want to make sure that they are interface connected and balanced with what's being proposed and what is currently already approved in the way of the sheer number of units. You know, I look around, I was amazed. I hadn't been back there in probably years, but the new recently opened all the apartments, Hanover House, whatever it is, and it sort of blew me away. And they're going to be, I guess, already the next stage is in progress, going to be
developed. And then you add to that, thank God, to me, Riverview came along and took care of the west end of town there. But, you know, I see things like, it just blew me away to read, and I guess it's to prove, what the old Cape Cod Bank and Trust property is going to become, and how close that is to Main Street. And I'm concerned with, well, that aside, looks like I made a mess of my shirt today. About the scale and the aesthetics of building, especially up and down Main Street and the surrounding towns. I'd like to see things, make sure they fit in our community. So I just wanna, I don't know what the existing, I've done no investigating whatsoever, what the existing zoning is, as far as, regulations on anything that I spoke about. But I just want to make sure we're driven and driving in the right direction. Basically, then.
Thank you. Have you followed, planning or ZBA?
I have not. No, been years. I've been in business for over 50 years, in and out, retired, and I'm back again. And so I've been a busy boy. Did a lot of work all around the country, Puerto Rico and stuff and everything else. And so I really, we've moved back recently to Center Street in Hyannis, bought one of the condos down there. And before that, my wife and I traveled, well, 2 years before that, traveled 4.5 years around the country, got a motorhome that we bought. Sold our house in Centerville. That was a big mistake. I'll tell you. And, I have some regrets about that, but, for what we experienced traveling, we loved it. I would certainly have loved to continue doing it, but my wife wants a good home base. We get a grandchild, 2 grandchildren now. And so, what that's like. I want to be there. So, I'm there. So, I just sit back, I read the papers, and once in a while I'll catch a little TV or something like that. And I'm just a little bit concerned, and I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing and going in the right direction.
I'm glad you're concerned. So are we.
I'm sorry?
I said, I'm glad you're concerned and thank you for stepping up. I said, so are we. We chose to stick our necks out.
I just read, stuff down Barnstable Road, Main Street, the West End, and, I grew up when the sewage treatment plant did one of its earlier expansions, and our office was across the street on Enterprise Road. And I'll tell you, like the late 60s, early 70s in there, you couldn't drive down Bursa's Way without a gas mask on. So it was terrible. And I experienced it again last summer at one short period of time. Maybe they were doing something, cleaning something out, but for like a week, it was like, boy, I hope this doesn't come back again, because it was really kind of noxious. And so, that got me more and more thinking, geez, I know they've got a lot of bedroom over there, but the beds that they thoughtfully planned for. But what is the ultimate capacity of that plant? What's the capacity of our water, our resource? And are we going to be able to handle all that's currently going to be built? And you hear all these rumors and stuff about so much in the works, and talk about getting blown away. The price of the 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units at the harbor, whatever it is over there, Hanover. I say, how do people afford this sort of thing? You can have 2 people working, but to pay for a $3,000 or $4,000 a month apartment, I just say, wow, where are the people coming from that are renting these places? They're not middle class, that's for darn sure, I don't think. Well, maybe, yeah, maybe there's a bunch of middle class, maybe there's 3 or 4 people that each wanted something, I don't know, but it's, I wouldn't want to be there.
When you served on the Economic Development Committee, did you address zoning or did that committee?
No, it was more to, in a way, so it was more for the beautification and drawing businesses into the town that would, that the town would be attracted to, well, businesses would be attracted to come into the town and open up,
Understand, again,
the businesses.
yeah, different focus. And if you're not selected for this committee, would you be still paying attention to what they're doing? If you were not selected to serve on.
I love my hearing aids.
Yeah, no problem. So if you were not.
I hear you.
If you're not selected for this committee,
Uh-huh.
would you still be engaged and show up and participate?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, but that's, that's my concern.
Yeah, and I think that people don't realize the value of showing up to committees and participating under public comment.
Well,
That it still has value.
the last, and I don't know who was for, who was against, but the last, I guess, community effort that I was involved in was Kate Gwynn. My wife was executive director of Clean Power Now. And that was a 10-year effort to try to get this thing built. And yeah, all right, now we've got them way offshore. But I spoke at town at all the meetings that were put on in the different communities, and it was done by the federal government and that sort of stuff. And it was really an eye opener where, the way some people, they don't have really a good grasp on what's happening to our environment and what are we doing about it. And we're not doing it quick enough in my mind. So we have to, again, make sure we head in the right direction and we do stuff that's going to be sustainable for long after our generation's gone.
Also, Bloom.
For as long as I can remember, there's been Peckham Electric.
Yeah.
Your father, you've been a master electrician for over 50 years. You've worked all over the place. You've got all kinds of experience. I think you're the kind of balance that this committee needs. Someone to offer a nice perspective in this area of zone.
I'd like to think so.
You know,
I'm not a zealot one way or the other, but, I listen and, let me try to make things work for the benefit of all of us.
that's why I'm going to vote for you.
Well, thank you.
It's, so how long have you been back on the Cape then?
Probably going on 5 years now.
Okay, and in general, I mean, I know, Sam and Martin and Paul from seeing them at meetings. I'm just curious, how you got wind of the ad hoc being set up and what I knew what drew you, but I guess I'm just curious, why now? As opposed to, you've been back 5 years and there's been other committee openings. I'm just curious, like, how you got that call to action,
Well,
I guess is.
like I said, I've been following pretty closely, I guess, haven't been to meetings and that sort of stuff, more seeing what I've read in the paper. And, occasionally, in the news, that there's a whole lot of development going on and some of it quite massive and dense. And, I guess what sort of turned the page for me was the golf course project. And I just couldn't get my head around, this is incredible that they're going to put that, they want to put that in such a a sensitive area that besides the sheer number, it's, what's it gonna do to the environment? It's, it's gonna be, all right, the golf course, I guess, is bad enough into itself, but you start loading those number of people there, outside of the fact that, yeah, they're gonna connect to the sewage system, but it's still gonna be, there's gonna be a big impact, or it would have been a big impact.
And how about, any concerns with, our water, access to, water, quantity and quality, and how maybe wind energy is going to impact that, or how overexpansion of building may impact the concept of water quality and quantity?
Well,
What's your view on that?
That's what one of the earlier things I said was that, our aquifer, what is the capacity of that to serve all that is proposed and already approved to be built? I don't know. I don't have my arms around that. And certainly people in the water departments and the sewage, the water pollution control, I would think that they've got, some sort of, I remember 20 years ago, there was talk, all right, we've got to have a cap because of the sewage treatment plant. There's only so many people we can have, or so many connections that can be made that's going to be able to, that we can handle. So, they've done some huge expansions and have the capacity, but I don't know what the capacity is. But I certainly want to learn it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Council Burdick?
Sorry, trying to unmute. No, I don't think I really have any questions. Again, as always, since I go last, you guys have handled it for me. Thank you. I just have one question. Are you related to Khalil Peckham?
Khalil,
Khalil?
that's my son. Yeah.
Oh, I thought so. I think I've met you before. Yes, I knew Khalil because he worked for Costuit Solar for years. I was just curious. That is totally aside from.
Yep. Out of his own company now, so.
I know he's doing good. He's got kids and everything. So anyway, that was all I had to say. Nothing worthwhile, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Peckham.
My pleasure.
Very nice meeting you.
Same here.
All right, thank you very much.
Stephen, it's good to have a, good to see you. Good to see you here. Good hearing.
Thank you for your interest.
You're welcome.
Last but not least, Mr. Phelan.
Good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
I finally meet you.
Nice
I
to
said,
I saw you all.
nice to see you.
Okay, so why housing?
It's always been kind of a passion for me. I'm acutely aware of the situation we're in right now. I have 2 kids that are unable to find housing. And I know it's really bogged down with regulations, but we must adhere to them. But I think we can work around it and be creative.
How old are your kids?
One, 32 and 34. Yeah.
Same.
Told I was going to help them, counselor, but that's off the table now. It's ridiculous.
Just call me Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your interest in our community. Have you been paying attention to what's been going on with the housing?
As much as I can, yes. And in the housing community, I've been in the whole situation. Yeah.
And when you say work to be creative, what do you envision? that to
Well,
be?
if you let me get specific, and I'll be very brief. Through my campaign, I met 6 elderly people that live in my precinct alone. Times that by 13, and maybe there's 65 other elderly people out there that want to move. They have no place to go. So I think if we can create some senior housing, backfill that with families, offer these folks a deal, we'll build a place to move to. If they'll sell to a yearly, or maybe if they'll lease yearly to families, young families, we can't be discriminating, but working families. Dennis is doing that now. They just they're leasing. I just found out to workforce people. So if we
I'm
can,
sorry to interrupt, but the town itself is doing that?
yes, Yeah, I was quite surprised by that. So if we, that's one issue, we can backfill, we can move, we can create senior housing first and backfill people in their homes. That it's not gonna solve the problem, it's a piece of the puzzle. And I have other similar ideas, I don't really want to go into right now, but I'd be glad to, you know, for instance, in my precinct, the B&Bs are a huge issue. There's 500 B&Bs in this town, and they're animal houses on the weekends. They're tying up the police and ambulances. I think our building department do a great idea with great what they can. They're very limited what they can do, and they're short-staffed.
Are you talking about Airbnbs?
Airbnbs, yes. Those Airbnbs are tying up year-round rentals or long-term rentals. Other towns have outlawed them, so I know it's done. Dover, Sudbury, all those wealthy towns, how can they outlawed them? And believe me, folks, I'm a firm believer, you can't force anyone, but you have to be careful with property rights. I'm a past landlord, my whole life I've been in landlord. I'm a blue collar worker. I also that helps me bring a little different perspective to things. I was a foreman in the newspaper, and I learned to work with 8 other departments and collaborate. We didn't just, if we can, if someone came up with a problem, said, what can I do for you? And it was likewise if I went somewhere else. So that's what I would like to see, more collaboration and more being creative, working within the rules, coming up with ideas. And I think I just shared 2 with you, you know.
And if you were not chosen for this committee, would you still be?
Absolutely, yeah, it's a passion and a hobby. And I just, when I pick up, I read 3 newspapers a day, and I always look for the housing stories. It's because it's important to me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So how many years were you in the newspaper business?
33 years.
33 years in the
And
newspaper business.
I had a very successful career, Charlie, until the internet came along. I had a great occupation. And now a buddy of mine said it perfectly. He said, "You're like a blacksmith, Paul." I said, "You're right." You know?
Yeah. And what newspapers did you work at?
25 years at the Herald, and then
The Boston Herald
yes,
and
and South End, and then the Globe, another 9 years.
the Boston Globe?
Yeah,
Well, those are two big newspapers.
7 days a
Yeah.
week. Yeah, Harish.
Oh. Oh, you know, with regard to housing, your daughters have a little bit of the home insecurity.
Absolutely. One was just lucky to get in, and she's in Boston. She was lucky to get a winning lottery. There were 300 people that applied for 2 units. And there were very strict requirements, and she was very fortunate to get one of them.
Wow, 300 people. for
Yeah,
2 units.
yeah.
It's probably the same here on the Cape, you know, it's that
Mhm.
desperate. I like your idea about giving elderly and retired folks housing. That's a real need here. Especially people who are, say, like retired teachers or something, who they may be retired for 20 years, 30 years. You know, quite frankly, their retirement check from the Massachusetts Teachers Retirement Bureau is probably pretty small. You know, it might have been okay 20 years ago, but they're still living on that inordinately small amount of money, and you know, having them pay for $3,000 a month for an apartment or whatever, that's just, it's just not.
If you want to interrupt with that, Charlie, I got a perfect example. My father retired from the Boston Police as a captain, was making $30,000. You know what they're making now? 200,000. So, you know, and they were lucky to have their house paid off, but they were house poor. You know, they had this they had a 4-bedroom house, and they had no place to go to downtown. So I saw the issue with my own family.
Yeah, I'm concerned about, places, that are being proposed because, it's great that they have at least the 10% or more. Some places are offering more.
Affordability. Yeah, well, I think we have a black eye in this town. We have I don't know if we're ever gonna get there. We're 700 units short. And I heard from the last council leadership that we had 1,000 units in the hopper. But I would like to look into that and see where those are and where they went.
We have 1,000 units in the hopper.
That's what I was told.
And
by the
10%
last leadership.
would be 100 affordable units,
Mhm.
okay? And so, but how much does that add to the overall? And
Base, yeah.
it seems to me that there's a mathematical inevitability that the more you build, the greater
Go
that
backwards.
10% becomes.
Yeah. Well,
You
what
know,
I
the
discovered.
larger number that becomes of units that are required. And,
That's true.
and so I think it's a very complicated issue, very complicated issue.
I did find out that if a project is 25% affordable, 100% of the units come towards. I find
Yes,
that pretty
that's what
interesting.
they're doing at 307.
Mhm.
But it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't help.
Mhm.
Because what you're having then is a whole bunch of units that are not affordable. Counting toward. And those units are not going to be given to people who can afford them. You know? And it's sort of like, it's a shuffle. And I think we need to build more affordable units in this town. And I think someone was asked earlier about, the percentage, and I think it was Martin was asked how much of the percentage is, should we have? And I think it's imperative that we do more than 10%.
I agree.
And
That's
figure
a
out,
minimum.
we gotta figure out what the ratio, what kind of ratio we need to get to 10%. Because if we're just building it at 10%, we're never gonna reach it.
Mhm. Agree.
That's my pontificate.
I'm gonna let Seth go because he's always saying he's last, so go ahead. Seth.
No, you're not supposed to do that because then I have other stuff to ask. No, I mean, for me, I don't know that I really have any questions for you specifically. I mean, up to this point, I'm second to last, and I think you pretty much covered it all. I like to always hear people's CV. You explain that. I get your basic philosophy on what you feel about these things. I know that you have been involved in the past, and you just ran, right, for town council just recently. Have you participated in any boards, committees, or commissions of the town, or any nonprofit boards? Again, stuff I could have got off your CV, but I'm just curious. I'm asking now.
Negative, Seth. I've always just attended meetings and enjoyed being a participant in the audience.
Right. Well, that's good. And yeah, I think that's about the size of it. I thank you for your interest, though, and it's always good to see you. I met you for the first time the other day at the bicycle thing, right? The ride. What was the name of that?
That was a fundraiser for the youth and youth sports on the Cape.
How long did you do it for? Did you do just 30 minutes or did you do the whole 2 hours?
Yeah, I did my 6 miles and then, yeah.
Well, good. There you go.
I did go to the gym from there though, Seth.
Huh?
I did go to the gym from there.
Oh, well, good. See, we know that you're fit and you'll survive the commission if you're put on it. So that's the main thing.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
What's the special tonight? I'm
Oh,
starving.
chicken pot pie. That's
Oh,
why I'm here right now, trying to make sure that things go well. Otherwise, I would have loved to be with you guys, but I had to keep my ear.
I can't wait to swing by.
Well, come and find me. I'll be here for the next few hours anyway.
All right.
But thank you for coming, Paul, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you all for serving. Incidentally, this might be a good chance to thank you all. I mean, you're thanking me, but you're the folks that have been putting in 5 or 6 hour meetings. Everything.
Have you given any thought to what you could, what a good vision would be for the Marston's Mills school property? Have you given that any?
Yeah, I believe there is gonna be a pump station needed there, for one thing. And affordable housing. It is key. I think it's the top of my, the top of my list. And also there's some more space the town owns behind the Cape Cod Mall. That no one knows about. It's a parking lot right now. It's empty. So I think it's the space where the carnival is right now. Perfect location for senior housing or anything, any kind of, whatever we find the need for. Of course, we have to work with that community, on any issue. I think it's up to hear from the residents there. I do know that it was mentioned previous that Hyannis is bearing the brunt of it right now, at, I think around 17–18%. I would like to see that spread out around, but that's something I'd love to hear these different opinions on the committee. One person ran for office last time, suggested we build a conservation there. Let's hear from him, if he believes that. Okay?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Just one thing though is, just as a town, I think we all need an education on the difference between low income, affordable, workforce housing. Because people say affordable, they think it's low income.
Yeah.
People say workforce and they think it's low income. The biggest housing deficit right now, not only on the Cape, but across the country, is workforce housing. People that make between $70,000 and $100,000 a year that can afford to pay for it, but can't find a place to live. That's the biggest housing deficit right now in the country.
It's the retail and restaurant owners.
Yeah, and we all know why, because of 2008. You know, we had 4 million too many homes built. In 2008, we never built again. So now we have an 8 million deficit or whatever it is. I watched on CNBC. I'm not that smart, so just so everybody knows. So, but that's something that we all have to kind of be careful with our words, and we should educate the public about the difference. Because when we say affordable, people are thinking like, oh my God, we're gonna turn into rock.
Very good point, Jeff.
You know,
It's a
so-
big umbrella. There's a lot of things.
And there is.
Affordable for $4,000 a month doesn't sound affordable to me.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you all.
Very nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Mr. Phelan.
Present. Take care.
All right. Well, how do you folks feel? What's everybody's day look like online?
Tomorrow, you mean?
Oh, good for
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Yeah, we have a meeting already tomorrow. I think today's Monday.
I'm like, I hope we're meeting.
Yeah, we are. I get back in town. I'm taking a red eye Sunday night. I'll be back Monday, so do you guys want to do something Monday? Because that's the 29th, right? Cynthia, Monday, 29th?
Yes.
How about the 30th, which is Tuesday?
That's
Is that good for you?
Yeah.
I need to know now, because I need to switch my patient care, which is.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm
one of the
trying,
problems
to figure
Yeah.
that out. So we can
Do
do
we know if
Tuesday?
the room is really open this time? I mean, we got kind of side.
Yeah, the
side-
only thing I can do is look on the calendar. Let me just double check for the next, I would say week there. You know, my opinion, we have 20 more people to get seated or get interviewed. The May 1st deadline that leadership imposed is not gonna happen. Because we only got 2 days and I can't get 20 people here.
You
in
can't,
2 days.
come on, we know you're
Because
not.
you also have to post the agenda 48 hours out and call people and say, are you available? And, you
So
know,
why don't we
it's
try to?
quite a
do-
hurdle trying to get
Well,
everybody
just,
here.
if that's the case.
And I
then-
appreciate everybody that did say I can make it, because it was like seconds notice that we were.
But we've closed the.
The application process
Yeah.
is closed.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
What we have, we have.
good.
Yeah.
All right, so what's good for everybody next week?
You know,
I can do Tuesday. Charlie can't do Monday. I can do Tuesday.
Calendar.
Tuesday the 30th, let me go look at that.
I was gonna look at it.
The other things we should embrace is tiny homes.
No.
Yes.
It's a good idea.
Have you ever lived in a tiny home?
No.
If you own more than one pair of pants, you're not gonna wanna live in a tiny home.
Okay.
Imagine taking your house.
A lot of people
I know.
advocate for it.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Like those, what do you guys think about the tiny homes?
Was that first?
I would consider it.
Yeah.
I would consider it, yeah. I think you consider it, yeah.
Yeah.
Would I want to live in a tiny home? No. I'm not, I'm gonna be honest,
But
but
if you don't have a home. it might
if you
be-
don't like, yeah, I agree. If you don't have a home, a tiny home's better than no home.
All right, so what time could you meet on, Chris said the calendar's clear. So what time's good for you?
Tuesday is wide open, this room after 2 P.M.
You're too late. Clock's already on.
Well, HR,
Oh, that's right.
the internal meetings aren't posted on the town calendar.
See, Chris trying to get me in trouble.
Whatever time it moves.
I don't know why.
Wednesday.
What's the date? The first, right?
Wednesday the first.
Sorry. That shouldn't be used for anything.
So Friday.
Cindy, how many people are scheduled tomorrow?
Tomorrow's schedule is, let me go get it. Hang on, I didn't bring it in with me. Or did I?
And you know, I was thinking over the weekend. With these committees,
These two committees, you mean?
yeah, with these two committees, it's my idea, and I'm only one person, but I think we should, populate them with people that maybe think differently, instead of trying to populate it with all the same people. Well, people
Yeah.
who think on the same lines,
I think that's a good idea.
you know what I mean? So we can be representative of this meeting.
There's 10.
Great
So we have 10 tomorrow. We had 6 today. So that means we'll have 4.
There's 20 that aren't on this. There's
That's
20
20
more.
additional.
Okay, 20 on top of these 10.
Yes, after today, we still have 20 more to schedule.
Because I added up the list that we gave you. It doesn't seem like that many.
I sent an email today
Yeah.
with an updated list after I pulled all these applications
Oh, so
and the ones that were received. And there's 20 more to be scheduled.
So there's 20 on top of this 10.
Correct. And that list is right here.
Okay, so next, so
You don't have your friends to your opinion.
We're all on top of who's already scheduled. That need still to be scheduled.
Okay.
and you've given us that list. I just haven't.
Yes, it's in your email.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you she was at work. She didn't receive it when I sent it. And again, I gotta reach out to these guys with dates and I need 2 days to post it, so.
So we need to really probably do next Tuesday and next Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, sounds good.
What's the Wednesday calendar look like next week?
May 1st,
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, even if she extends it, we still have to do it.
I just want to get it over.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is even if she gives us an extra week,
Yeah.
we still have to meet to get it done.
Yeah.
In a week, so.
HR.
I'm just.
I don't
wondering-
think there's anything on it. If
I'm
it's
just-
there, then it's.
I was wondering if we want to have like next Wednesday be like, we maybe try to get everybody next Tuesday and Wednesday. So that
So
means
on
we
the
like-
30th and the
Yeah, that's
1st.
like 10 a day. That's fine.
Well, there's 10.
Well, we're interviewing these tomorrow,
Okay, and then we have 20
then
more.
we have 21 more. So we can do 11 one day, 10 the next, it doesn't matter to me. I just rather
No,
get them done
okay.
over.
So we want to do next Tuesday and Wednesday at 2?
It's fine with me.
Did you want to move it back to 3:30? Because of people who will work.
Yeah. well,
Okay, but you know what? We have to get it done, Chris. We don't,
Well,
I'll explain to the applicants that we started 2, and if there's some that work till 5, we're gonna be here till 5 anyway.
Would you rather start later into?
No, start early. So people that can get in, I'll start. I'll go to work at 6 in the morning, so, I mean, don't worry about me, I'm up. So I'd rather do it started at 2. So the ones that are retired, don't have to work, we can get them in, get them out. The ones that have to work, we'll make accommodations, we'll make it work.
How about if
I'm
we,
I also offer to send the Zoom link if they can't
Yeah.
get here in person and they're working till 5, they can Zoom in.
yeah, what if when you're calling them, I'm sure this is what you do already, you say, listen, you're gonna work your way down the list and you start booking, and if you book from 2, work your way out, and then the people that need to come at work, the end of work are the only ones that come at that time.
Yeah,
And then-
that's what I.
And then we'll go to Wednesday in the afternoon if we need to.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll be able to like slot everybody Tuesday and then I'm sure you have.
Yeah, that's what I usually do. I send an email to them and I let them know the next possible 2 dates. And then they tell me whether they're available or not available. If they send an email back and say they're available, I put them in the time slot and I tell them, you're in the beginning of the meeting, come in the very beginning. But with these gentlemen here, I told them the meeting started at 2 and it was easier if everybody showed up at 2, that nobody had set times.
So how about if we do this Tuesday, Wednesday, 10, and Thursday?
I can't take much.
You take the time off, you understand?
I know.
No,
Well, I already
No, that's
took
fine.
Tuesday.
Or we can do like an evening thing. Maybe,
No.
5 o'clock.
Council meeting.
Well,
We're not going to council meeting. Take 5 of us and we'll all get done.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's see, let's
So
see,
both days are at 2.
yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we can just see how that goes. Maybe she's gonna be able to get them all and we're not gonna need Thursday.
And I will
That's
call,
And if not,
Thursday.
I'll call all.
During the day, I can't do Thursday. Thursdays for me.
okay, we're buying Cindy dinner, that's Tuesday, Wednesday. We're gonna be here.
Oh, really? So yes.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
I will, I'll call everybody tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Get everybody scheduled as soon as possible.
And we'll go
Those
from
2
there.
days. And then if we need one more day to handle some that can't get there. But I think we're gonna be successful in getting the majority of them.
Yeah, so we'll do Tuesday, Wednesday, and then if we have to pick up another day. All right?
Charlie, you said you can't do it out during the day after Thursday.
I can't do Thursday, because
Friday.
I mean, I could maybe do,
I'm pretty sure we're gonna be okay with these guys.
Yeah.
Always within.
plus we also would need to have, I'm sure we'll be touching base with Felicia about where we're at, and it's not gonna be done by.
Yeah, but it'll show that we made it.
Oh, yeah.
Hey. Like I like to say, some have a work.
Well, I mean, it's not.
Well, that's
bad.
not
It's
just you guys, it's the applicants too. I got a lot of pushback from people that said, I don't get out till 5 PM. I'm not gonna get to Hyannis till at least 6. I work in Orleans.
Well, and if there's too many of those, we'll just make accommodations.
Yeah,
I can do that.
and all you need is.
We'll meet at Chris's doctor's office.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't have video capability. It's against the law.
Oh,
What happens in my office stays in my office.
yeah, well, that's- All right, well, people,
Move to,
yeah, somebody want to move to
move to adjourn. Oh, second.
Counselors, Bloom.
Here, and Seth, my wife loves your meatball subs.
Yay.
Circleton,
Here, or yay, yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Burdick.
Yes.
You are adjourned at 3:23 PM.